Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90. Brought to you by Housing Finance Bank, a financial institution regulated by Bank of Uganda. Housing Finance Bank, we make it easy.
Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us for this edition of Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90, which is broadcasting from the Central Building here in the heart of our city, Kampala, but also on its website, www.radio1fm90.com. On that website, there's an icon with the word Listen Live. Click on it, and you'll be listening to us loud and clear. We're also coming to you live online via the different radio listening apps. Tune in, AfroMobile, your TV channel, Radio Garden, and Stream Africa. Those can be obtained from the Google stores of your smartphone. Download any, look for Radio 1 FM 90, and you'll be in business. The other option is via DSTV. Our audio channel there is 897. If you have a DSTV connection, look for that audio channel. Radio 1 is there, loud and clear. My name is Kenneth Lukwagandason, your host. Today, we'll be looking at how government is handling the trade-related matters. Now, earlier today, President Yoweri Museveni, in fact, just a few minutes ago, a meeting between President Yoweri Museveni and traders from different parts of the country has come to an end at Kololo ceremonial grounds. Now, a number of issues have been raised by the traders. They have complained about heavy taxation, preferential treatment of foreigners or investors, unfairness by tax collectors, the low threshold of value-added tax, and the introduction of the electronic physical receipting and invoicing system known as Efris. There were also a number of other issues put across that touch on matters trade. Now, the president responded to these issues. First of all, he dismissed the notion that there are so many taxes in Uganda that is frustrating trade by saying that the taxes imposed are deliberate to protect the Ugandan economy. He explained that the reason why you don't see taxes on exports of raw materials is because those ones are essential in growing the Ugandan economy. He further explained that all items that are useful in developing the country are not taxed. He also indicated that the current outcry of the traders they are making is because of the wrong choices, which is focusing so much on imports, which generally, he explained, attract taxes. Now, Mr. Museveni advised traders to become exporters, dismissing claims that local investors are not supported. He actually said there are so many Ugandans who have factories in places like Namamve. He read out a list. He accused the leadership of the traders for not providing guidance to the traders that he has repeatedly shared with them. In fact, he called out the name of the spokesperson of Kampala Capital City Traders Association, Kasita, several times, saying he had advised them to move away from importation into local production. He also defended investors, especially those from China, who he says have not only created jobs, but also helped the country to balance its trade by helping the country not to rely so much on imports. He used the example of tiles that are being manufactured in Nakaseke. He warned traders against what he called bad language directed at such investors. He has also invited the traders for another meeting, which will take place on the 20th of June, to give room to leaders and the traders, room to leaders of the traders and the government to iron out some of the things that were not clearly explained. On the issue of Efris machines, President Yoweri Museveni has advised the traders to use their mobile phones instead of buying the expensive 6 million machines. He also announced that he had scrapped the fines and penalties that the traders were incurring for not using this system that is favored by URA. So we'll be looking at some of these issues that the president has put across, but also picking from the experience of a trade expert on whether actually the government is handling these issues properly and the signal that it sends to the other people who closely follow matters in Uganda. My guest this evening, Ms. Jen Nalunga, the Executive Director, Siatini Uganda. She has an experience of decades in the area of multilateral trade and bilateral and regional trade in general. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us on Spectrum Madam Jen Nalunga.
Good evening, Kenneth, and good evening, all our listeners. I'm happy to be here.
All right. And you followed closely the meeting between the traders and the president at Colorado. First of all, let's begin from there. The move to meet the traders, first of all, as somebody who has been following their complaints and so forth. And what has so far come out? What impressed you? What did not impress you? Even before we dig deeper into the issues.
Okay. What impressed me is the fact that the president was willing, to meet the traders, and this isn't the first time he's meeting them. That leaders of the traders went and met him, and he has also gone ahead to meet them today. So for me, I think that's positive. Without, even before we look at the outcomes, in a way, somebody wants to meet you halfway to say, let us talk. For me, I liked that. Not so many presidents can do that. So for me, I'm impressed with that. Maybe we can go deeper to see what were the outcome, but at least the channels are open for discussion and for debate. I liked that.
All right. Right. Let's try to dig deeper and look at some of the issues. Of course, the complaints that the traders have been putting across. And now we have had from the president responding to these issues. Do you think the issues of the traders have actually been responded to adequately?
No, not really, because when you look at what the traders want, on the issue of Efris, it's going to continue, isn't it? But they are leaving out the penalties. But
and also the option of you actually using your mobile phone.
Which is okay, but you see, we have laws. It's clearly indicated in Tax Procedure Act, Code Act, that if you do ABCD, if you don't use Efris, if you do this to the machine, these are the penalties. In fact, the penalties around Efris go up to 50 million, So unless to celebrate, let us change that law, because we have there are laws in place, somebody doesn't say and it happens. That's done by God, let it be and it appears. So if the president, that's what he's talking about, Efris, whatever he talks about, let Parliament sit tomorrow and change it. Let that law that act be changed, that provision be changed. But you see that their hands will be tied because this is a pronouncement. It can be an executive order, but again, it leads to the change of the policy. Let the act be changed.
All right. Let's hear from you specifically on this issue of Efris, because the government says it's a process, it's a procedure that actually, a system that will actually ensure tax compliance. People will pay what they are supposed to pay. You are somebody who interacts with the traders, but also your organization also hosts the Tax Justice Alliance. How do you look at this issue of Efris? Uganda introducing Efris. We actually told you the same systems are working well in other countries.
Yeah. For us, we think it isn't an increase in tax. Efris is not a tax, it's a system. And like any other system, the users have to be conversant with it. So the whole issue is for URA to educate and maybe to give time, to give time to the traders to be educated, to be trained on how to use it. But there has been a misconception that Efris is a tax. No, it isn't an additional tax. It's a system. And we have seen systems changing. You saw the education syllabus, curriculum. It changed. But they even had to train the teachers themselves, So, and they gave, time to be able to do that. So even for for Efris, we need time. The traders need time to learn it, how to do it, and also to be able for you to address some of these shortcomings. For me, that's what I think. It isn't a tax, it's a system. Let the people, the users, learn that system. Let there be time for them to learn that system.
So should it be suspended like the traders are demanding, or it can be something that is rolled out slowly?
It can be rolled out, It can be rolled out, maybe sectors, maybe starting with the big manufacturers, and then it goes, So that debate, for me, that debate, what the traders should put on table is how it should be rolled out, because, and I learned this from us as civil society. Government used to tell us that you are saying no. What do you want us to do? Don't say we don't want. What do you want? How do we change? How do we roll it out? So for me, I think that's where the traders can concentrate on, put some positives on table that roll it out, but start with the manufacturers because they do big businesses. Then continue the rollout. But that's just a suggestion. But let them put some suggestions on table, some positive, giving a clear way forward.
All right. Now, in terms of trade, there have been complaints about so many taxes that are apparently in Uganda. People have been complaining about every point of a sale being taxed to the extent that the consumer also pays tax. But we have heard from the president today who has actually said there are actually lesser taxes in Uganda compared to what so many people are saying. And if you might have heard him there, he actually says one of the reasons the traders could be facing the taxes they are talking about choice to focus on imports instead of, he actually used the Luganda word okusaka, people who go to spend outside the country instead of focusing on growing their economy. What would be your take on that?
Okay. It is true, unfortunately, that our economy is a supermarket economy. People go to China, bring things, get in Jawuro, and they're okay. And a country can't develop like that. But what I have learned, somebody does things which make a profit. We are rational beings. I can't sit here and invest in something where I don't get any profit. So if importing things is profitable, then people will go there. So it's up to government to direct, to direct people, to direct the economy towards a certain direction. And this is where I also fought government. You can't tell people that why don't you manufacture? Yet, when you manufacture, in fact, you talked about it, that because the manufacturing are also retailing, the manufacturers. And I heard him saying that they are retailing because Ugandans are not buying from those from the manufacturers. They prefer going to buy from outside, from China. Then you wonder, if you are manufacturing, in Namamve here, but a product which is coming from Guangzhou, you put it on the plane, it's cleared in custom and you pay taxes, and it reaches Chikuba and it's cheaper than a product in Namamve, then there's a problem. Then that's the problem, the challenge which we need to sit and address. How do we make our products competitive? The issue of competitiveness has been an issue on the table for a long time. Not just the products on the Uganda market, but also our competitiveness when we export our products. Because, the issues of quality, we export even raw products, we export them and they are rejected, So those are things which we need to look at, and those are things which government has to look at. The issue of competitiveness, for example, government put in place the import substitution
strategy and
policy. But up to today, nothing has been done. Very little. What should government do? Issues of electricity. The cost of doing businesses in Uganda here is very high. That's why things come from China, and they are cheaper on our market. And the moment you allow cheaper things to come in and to compete with your manufactured products, the local manufacturer will get out of business.
So you agree with the government's deliberate decision to actually impose heavy taxes on imports, for instance, in the garment subsector? Seems to be where the issue is.
But you see, you can't do it on one side that you impose heavy taxes. It's okay, and if you want to protect the local economy, the local sector, specific sector, there are so many things you have to do, but you have to tax them. Taxation is a tool, an industrialization tool. We, as Uganda, under the IMF World Bank, we liberalized, opened up. When you open up and you can't compete, you are out of business, isn't it? So you first strengthen yourself and you open up. That gradual opening up. And that's what countries have been doing. But for us, we opened up under IMF World Bank. I will give you an example. If you want, I don't know, Tyson now is gone, I don't know. But if you wanted to tussle it out with Tyson, you have to eat. You have to grow your muscles and then fight. But if, Kenneth, the way you are, and you say you are fighting with somebody like Tyson, automatically you would die. And this is what happened to our economies. We liberalized very quick, very fast. Our production, our industries collapsed. And these are things which we need to sit deliberately and discuss. You remember the textile industry completely. Today, it would be difficult to revive it unless we sit and deliberately say this is where we want to go.
All right.
Where do we put the taxes? Where should we remove taxes? And by the way, in Siatini we have a saying that you don't stumble on development. Development is planned to the last letter. We also believe trade is war. It's like you are going for a war, like you prepare to go for a war. That's when you plan for your trade. Where do you want to go? Whom are you competing with? Whom do you want to get out of that market? Where do you want to put your money? And that's the plan. Government is lacking.
All right. You raised a very important issue. You said government put in place an import substitution strategy, but nothing is yet done. Let's look at the basics. What should the government be doing? Because President Yoweri Museveni seemed to say that we are importing so much more and exporting less, and that strategy would work brilliantly to address this issue. So what should we be doing as a country that we are not doing? It
would, and he's right. Yeah, because the figures, we need to go back to the figures. We are importing more than we're exporting. And we are running a trade deficit. When you look at our trade deficit every year, it's going up every year. So we are importing finished products, exporting raw commodities, coffee, tea, whatever, gold, raw. And like the president keeps on saying, we are importing jobs. Because the moment we import raw,
we are exporting jobs.
Because you can't industrialize. Because when you industrialize, those are
People
jobs.
Get jobs.
People get jobs. Look at the textile, garment, apparel, right from the seeds, what you get from the seeds, the oil, the animal feed, then you do the yarn, then you do the threads, then you do the clothes, then the artists who are making the designs, then those who are making the dye, so many jobs. So what do we need to do? We need a plan.
We have a plan already.
No, strategy is not a plan. Which sector do you want to import substitute? And which product? Because we are going down to a product.
You are the experts.
Trade, I'm not going to dictate where we are supposed to do. I'm giving a framework, what needs to be done.
You can also share your advice. You know Uganda very well in the area of trade.
Trade is about a specific product and a specific market. Take an example of tea. Tea is not tea. Tea, there is black tea, there is green tea, there is white tea. So you look at the market. What market do I want to take over? And you think through, what do we need? Uganda, we have been given so many markets. So many. And the president, I don't know why he didn't talk about them this time. We have markets, we have the ESC market, we have the COMESA, SADC under tripartite. Now we have the Continental Free Trade Area. Europe told us, bring everything you have, apart from arms. AGOA has just been taken. China, the markets are there, but what specific product do you want to take there? And even when it comes to import substitution, the ministry needs to sit and be able to look at what product is viable for us. What does it take to import substitute it? And that's where even the taxes come in. Because if you say, for example, we import a lot of matchboxes, by the way, from China. And you say, even toothpicks, we import toothpicks from China. Those are the low-hanging fruits. And you say, no more toothpicks.
All right. Doesn't that probably point to our weakness on the part of negotiations? Because if we are negotiating with blocs like European Union and they are telling us bring everything but not arms, there's a limitation there. Can't we go out there and tell China, bring other things, but we don't need toothpick, we don't need matchboxes. Those we can make here.
But why do you have to tell them? The instruments, the taxes, those are the instruments. Because given the trade, the trade dynamics, you don't tell somebody, don't bring that. No, you use taxes. You say, that one, we are taxing it 500%.
But
look at Japan.
We're on a table negotiating.
Look at Japan. Look at their on rice. Can you take rice to Japan? You can't. The taxes are very, very high. So even for us, we need to look at, if we say we are going to import substitute toothpicks, then we relate the ministry
taxes on
it.
On toothpick that come from China.
China, a high. That means for somebody who wants to, they are like people like you who say, for me, I can't use a toothpick made in Uganda. I want whether I'm buying it 20,000 or 50,000, I'm going to do that. You can afford it. It's okay because government is getting an income from it, But then you are giving space and a market for the local manufacturers to be able to do toothpicks and to get a market. But if the toothpicks coming from China are cheaper than toothpicks which are going to be made in Namavi, why should somebody put up a factory to do toothpicks? So that's the kind of strategy we need. What product can we import substitute? What needs to be done? In terms of taxes. In terms of machinery, government can be able to say, if we are going to do toothpicks, what kind of machines do we want? And then you can be able to say the machinery for toothpicks. Anyway, machineries don't have they don't have taxes, but you can be able to say we can even give an incentive for people who are going to do toothpicks. So that's putting the strategy into action. So the strategy is there, but it hasn't been put into action. And for me, I think this is what is lacking in our economy, the way our economy is being run. There is lack of actual planning. Today, they tell people, go and moringa, the market is available. And poor people go and grow moringa. Within no time, avocado. But and the problem again, because in trade, there is what we call product agreements. You can be able, and this is what Kenya did with China when it came to avocados. You can be able to negotiate with China and be able to say, we have such a product, even if it seems. Even with these Arab countries, we have sim. We can be able to supply you with sim. How many tons? So many tons. What's the price? What's the quality? Because, for example, take an example of sim. We have black sim, pure black. We have white. We have brown and mixed. What kind of sim do the Arabs want?
All right.
And then you go ahead and negotiate the price, negotiate the packaging, negotiate everything. Then you sit back and then work it out.
All right. Yeah. Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90. We're going to go for a break, but we urge you to send in your comments and questions via the WhatsApp line, which is 0703-090-090. My guest this evening is Ms. Jen Nalunga, Executive Director at Siatini, Uganda. We are looking at how government is handling trade-related issues. Earlier today, President Yoweri Museveni had a meeting with the traders here in Kampala, and he raised a number of issues that Jen Nalunga is reflecting on, but we also urge you to share with us your views. Stay tuned, Radio 1 FM 90. Spectrum continues after these messages.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90. Radio 1 FM 90.
Well, thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum, live on Radio 1 FM 90. My guest this evening is Jen Nalunga, Executive Director, Siatini, Uganda. Our topic of discussion, how government is handling trade-related issues. This discussion is hinged on the meeting President Yoweri Museveni has just had with the traders, running from around 2 p.m. to late in the evening, where he addressed a number of issues. Now, Jen, one of the issues President Yoweri Museveni is actually talking about is Ugandans becoming exporters and not importers. We talked about the issues of importation, where he actually said he does not want them to be only importers. He wants to see them doing export. And he actually said in the export subsector, there are no taxes for people to pay. So you can easily do business there and make a profit and then pay your taxes. But let's look at the issue of exports. First of all, let's begin with the issue of taxes. The president says there are no taxes there. Is that true from your analysis? But also as a country, are we doing enough to actually support our businesses that are coming up to partake of the opportunities in the export area?
Okay. Thank you so much, Jonas, Kenneth. On the issue of exports, we need to export. There is no country which can develop without exporting, without trading, without utilizing all the markets, the national markets, the regional and the global markets. And we need to do that. And like I pointed out earlier, our trading is not in a good position because we are running a trade deficit. We are exporting less. than we import. In fact, one figure which I wanted to point out, just in Feb, we had a trade deficit with China of $96.3 million. What we brought in and what we sent to China. A trade deficit, $96.3 million. And by the way, that's why Uganda, we are indebted. We are not going to talk about the debt issue, but it's like you, Kenneth, in your home. If you are consuming more than what you are bringing in, you are always in debts, and this is where we are. So we need to look at the economy. We need to look at how to produce, what to export. The issue of export taxes, there are export taxes in place. For example, on hides and skins, there are export taxes. Is it about 750 per kilogram? We have export taxes on fish meal of 8%. We have export taxes on tobacco. I think those are the key areas: hides and skins, tobacco.
So it's not entirely true that we don't have taxes there.
But you see,
maybe on the issues that Uganda. Which are common in terms of our exports.
But what
agricultural products and things like that.
There are no taxes. But one thing which I wanted to point out, we also have taxes on unprocessed minerals, gold and other minerals. But what I wanted to point out is that export taxes are not bad. If we are to go back to our import substitution, because if you want to add value, for example, on hides and skins, you have to discourage the export of raw products so that your industries have raw materials. So export taxes are okay. In fact, even when we want to add value to if we say we are going to add value to our coffee, government might end up saying, let us tax the exports of raw coffee so that we can be able to process it internally, so that we can be able to get jobs and export value-added products. So export taxes is a tool for industrialization. It isn't bad at all. In fact, a number of countries outside don't want us to impose export taxes because they want our raw materials cheaper the other side so that they can feed into their industries. So if we want to add value, we need to have those export taxes. They are not bad at all. So how do we export and what should we export? The president is right when he says we are exporting jobs, we need to export. But we need to be clear what exact product and what markets. And this is where we are missing out. Because even if you want to add value, to industrialize and then export, you need to first produce. Uganda, the challenge we have, even maize, that we don't adhere to standards. And that's the challenge we have been even having with raw commodities like maize grain. They will say it's rotten, it has aflatoxins, and those are issues which we need to look at, So I think government government talks a lot about industries, about exports, but nothing is done.
All right.
Take an example of the Ministry of Trade. Ministry of Trade is almost like, I don't want to hold a brief for Ministry of Trade, but I'm passionate about trade. And I know as Uganda, we can be able to trade our way out of poverty. But when you look at the budget, because today we have a program-based budgeting, not sector like trade, agriculture. So now we have agro-industrialization, which is very good because agriculture, you need to add to agro-industrialization linkages. But I think this Last financial year, it was just about 8.8 trillion, and most of it is from outside agro-industrialization. This coming year, it's around 1.6, and government, I think, is putting there less than 1 trillion. Agro-industrialization.
So we are not serious on.
We are not
industrialization.
serious on everything, production, industrialization, everything. We are not.
All right, and then that brings in the aspect of us. Since we cannot manage to raise the financing, there are investors out there who can actually come in here and do the job, invest here in the country, and do the industries that we can't do. President Yoweri Museveni used the example of the tiles industry in Nakaseke, used an example of other industries that are in Namamve that are already taking root in a country. So probably the solution will be bringing in investors. But in there, we are also complaining about them.
Yeah, but surely I have never heard of any country which has ever developed by help from other people. Investors are looking for money, for a profit. Trade is not charity, So take an example. Let me give you an example of investors.
The president said even countries like the US, the countries that have developed, they all did so because of attracting investors.
Not really. No,
who actually invested in.
That isn't true. Take an example of the US. Their own investors. Their own. And their governments put in a lot of money. Take an example of the European Union, UK. Were colonies. They used to get the raw materials from here. They industrial. They
still
plan.
get some even from here.
Yes, the industrial. When you look at the industrial revolution planned for, let me tell you that UK in their industrial revolution, they wanted to push people off the land, and they had a law that when you die, you are not dying. Yeah. Kenneth, when you die, you have a home, you have sons. You don't subdivide that land. You leave it to your one son. The others get out.
They are supported to go into other ventures.
But also you go to the industry. So there is a plan.
And the president has been speaking about it here.
But what
families
plan?
should form companies instead of relying entirely on the land. You can form a venture.
What company? What can my father? Well, he's gone. But what company would he have?
Did you subdivide the land?
We did. The land was subdivided. Because it's coffee. My father was growing coffee, and the other son was also going to grow coffee. So what company are you going to do when it's the same land and there is coffee? What company are you going to do? And this is what I was saying. Our economy needs planning. And with planning, even if you are growing maize, you remember, just recently, Zambia was saying they can't afford to feed themselves because they need maize. But where is the plan for us to be able to have a product agreement with Zambia that Zambia, this season we are going to supply you with this high quality maize, so many tons of maize. Nothing, isn't it? Look at the pineapples. We grow pineapples and the pineapples are there on the street, but we import cereals, we import what? We don't add value, So, like I said, you can't stumble on development. Development, you plan to the last letter, and we have failed to plan. We have failed to put our money where our mouth is. If the president is serious, let him put money in the Ministry of Trade. Let them plan. Let them look for specific markets for specific products. It isn't there. You see? So we can't develop. And believe you me, 2 years down the road, we'll be back talking about these same issues. And what's going to change, that those people those ones who are in Chikubu, they will be out back in the villages, other people will be there who have sold their land to come in Chikubo, and they will be
doing the same
doing
things.
the same.
All right. On the 20th of June, President Yoweri Museveni is again meeting the traders. Looking at what happened today at Kololo, and then the decision to have this next meeting in June, do you think probably this should bring to a conclusion the issues that we are looking at? And what advice would you give, for instance, the traders during this time? Because the president told them to prepare and have those issues ironed out, some of the issues that were not ironed out during this meeting. What advice would you give?
For me, because I was listening to some of the issues, there was the unfair competition from manufacturers who are going directly to also retail. That one, there is already in place a Competition Act. The Competition Policy Act addresses that, but it hasn't been implemented. So the traders should task the president to ensure that that competition law is implemented. But now what's happening when it comes to implementation of that very good law, because you can't manufacture, you sell one crate, you sell even one bottle, you even sell in a bar. That can't work. And the Competition Act talks about that, addresses that. But when you look at the implementation, they have said there is not going to be an authority. It's going to be implemented by a unit in the Ministry of Trade, which can't work because the ministry, it can't work. So that's one issue which I'm telling the traders, look at that Competition Act, make sure that it's implemented to the letter. Another issue, and the traders should be aware of the policy environment and the laws, and the laws. And that's why I was saying, if the president says, Efris, the penalties are gone, let them not jubilate. Let them say, Parliament, change that act. Okay? Another issue which they were looking at is the Trade Licensing Act, that I think they were talking about the investors who come in here and they do retailing and like the Chinese hawking. And that's also simple. Let us go to our investment code, because the investment code is the one which regulates the investors. It regulates what the investors should do and what the investors shouldn't do. We have been advocating for review of the investment code. That law which regulates investors has gaps. And I'm happy that these people are talking, the traders are also talking about it. So let the traders, let us go, look at the investment code, ensure that the investment code has carve out, what should the investor do when he comes in, Shouldn't he be or she be at the manufacturing level instead of being at retail? That issue is not addressed in the investment code. In fact, it goes even to agriculture. We are saying if an investor comes in, what level of agriculture should you go into? Why should you go and grow coffee in Kaweri when the people who left Kaweri were growing coffee? And you're also growing coffee and sending the raw coffee to Germany.
All right. Well, Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90, we have comments already coming in. Kasozi Mulindwa writes in and says, greetings, Spectrum. Command economics or economic determinism, import substitution, export promotion, buffer stock, stabilization fund, and the like is outdated economics. It is not sustainable because it is upheld and thrives on the politics of the day. Modern markets that are sustainable are freely determined by the price mechanism, carefully regulated by market considerations or standards. That's a comment from Lindwa there. We have another comment coming in from Anthony. Good evening, Spectrum. The problem Uganda businessmen are facing is lack of market force. That's why we are complaining, because money is not in circulation. Let the Kasita introduce a system of trading in Uganda. Wholesalers should stop selling same price to a retailer, same price he or she sells to a wholesaler, so that others can also sell their own goods, so that money can be in circulation. If everyone goes to Kampala to buy goods, who will support those out there? That's a comment from Anthony. Muto from Bombo. Ms. Nalunga scores good arguments on Uganda's trade bottlenecks. However, on economic liberalization being rushed, she misses out the fact that it was not on the whims of the government, but the Bretton Woods institutions of IMF and World Bank that gave it as a precondition for aid the government badly needed to kickstart the economy. Multinational benefited particularly from privatization that killed the local entrepreneurship spirit, gaining command over the economy. That said, though, local entrepreneurship is growing. The reason the local business community is able to put up a fight to the point of engaging the president. Several foreign-owned companies or businesses like supermarkets have closed the last few years, particularly because of local competition. Taxes partly frustrated them. We have another comment. Hello, Spectrum. Kindly remind Ms. Jane Nalunga that Uganda used to import sugar and bread. This was dealt with, including creation of URA to stop smuggling. I hope Madam knows who the importers are, the economy, who the importers are in the economy. Plans and strategies are in place, and goods Okay, plans and strategies are in place, but the challenge is implementation, as simply demonstrated by the Efris issue. Yiga Samuel writes and says, "Can I thank you for the show? Sincerely speaking, Mr. Museveni words are worth listening to, but the problem is implementation, because he has gotten many corrupted officials. Another thing, what pains taxpayers most is failure to show what the taxes do with all the poor infrastructure in the country." Our guest says government can or should levy high taxes on some goods that we don't want to import as a country. When government implements such taxes, traders go on strike. What should government do? Sometimes our friends from civil society are just good at criticizing. That's a comment from Apollo. Then lastly, we have a comment coming here, and somebody's asking, can you explain the impact of your work? This person says that you've been receiving a lot of funding to support the trade subsector. What is the impact of your work as Siatini? Well, those are some of the comments that have come in. Very quickly, if you can attend to them.
Okay, thank you so much for these comments. I will start with a comment from Mr. Mulindwa Kasozi about the outdated economics. And I think this is the challenge we have been having. The other day, just yesterday, we are launching training on competition policy. Competition policy about regulation. What the IMF World Bank told us, about issues of market forces, supply and demand, and laissez-faire, let markets do whatever they want. For me, this is the outdated economics, because the reality on the ground is that government has to regulate in public interest. And for me, I think people should not swallow whatever they hear in the economics books. Does it work for us or doesn't it work? So Mr. Mulindwa, when you talk about market forces and supply and demand, what you need to tell us, has it worked for Uganda? Because like the person from Bombo has pointed out, that we rushed into liberalization because of IMF World Bank. And this is the market forces. They are telling us, leave it open, liberalize. So if it hasn't worked for the last so many years of liberalization, why don't we rethink, other than saying that's outdated economics? So Mr. Mulindwa, we can have a debate around this, but for us, we are looking at the reality on the ground. And the colleague from Bombo has talked about that we rest because of Bretton Woods. It's true. It was a precondition. But these conditionalities were given to so many countries, even Kenya, you know. But for us, we swallowed everything. They tell us liberalize, we say open up, we jump. We don't even ask. We just jump, and we jump the highest. And this is why we are saying the entire world is rethinking, you know, rethinking liberalization, rethinking industrialization. And we need to rethink to be able to industrialize. And for me, I believe if we rethink, we can be able to do it. We can be able to reverse some policies which are not working. And we are not criticizing without giving alternatives. We are. And as Siatini, we have engaged in policies, the investment policies, like now with the competition policy. We are part of that. And that's why we are telling the traders, please engage on the Competition Act to see that it works for you. You know, some people don't mind about the policy and the policy environment. They think, we don't want this, we don't want that. Put it in a law. We have a saying, if you want it, ink it. That's why if you want to get married, put your signature on the marriage certificate, ink it. So if you want anything done, put it in the law, you know. But Ugandans, they don't want that. So and maybe to answer the impact of our work, we have put laws in, we have facilitated, we have advocated for very good laws to be put in place. But like everybody, two people have said about implementation. The implementation is not there. And that's why we are saying Ugandans, we should look at the budget. Where is our money going? If we are talking about factories, manufacturing and all that, and agro-industrialization is getting just 1.6 trillion. And then we are here, you know, saying the president, what is happening? And we let the budget go. Then we have a problem, you know. And as Siatini, we engage on the budget and we give alternatives. What should go where? You know, and for me, I think that's where. For me, I just want to call upon Ugandans to be active, to be Ugandans, because when you are taxpayer, by the way, you have a social contract with government. You have a right to demand. And we should be demanding for government to do certain things. And when we meet the president, we should be saying the budget, where is it going? The other time, this is what happened, you know?
All right.
So let us make our engagement more productive, more objective.
I might thank you, Ms. Jane Nalunga, Executive Director, Siatini, Uganda. Thank you very much for making time to share your views on the outcome of the meeting between President Yoweri Museveni and the traders. Thank you very much for making time for that.
Thank you so much, Kenneth.
Thank you very much, dear listeners, for being part of this show and contributing your views. You have helped us to shape the discussion here in studio. I've been your host, Kenneth Lukwago Anderson. Up next, we have the news in English with Miss Josephine Dagano. Thereafter, we'll have the Soul Train with Bibi Jr.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.